Hello, everyone. It's Bogdan Globa, and today I'm with Dzvenyslava Shcherba, a human rights activist from Ukraine, and we making our first video in English, so for our American English audience. So, uh, do you want to say a few words about yourself and what best presents you and your work?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Dzvenyslava. I'm a Ukrainian activist and human rights defender. Mostly my activism was focused and is focused on women's rights and LGBT rights. So I'm currently in Ukraine, and so I'm really very glad to talk to you.
Yeah, it's nice, and I'm actually very happy we have this opportunity, and everyone have electricity, and because we all knew last news from Ukraine, people don't have electricity very often, and it's now much harder connect with people from Ukraine. Can you a little bit tell us about what's going on right now in Ukraine, and what situation on with war, and what people levels and
Yeah, I can tell the situation is really ambivalent. In one hand, when you come to cities like Kiev, Lviv, you see people who are going to cafes, who are meeting together, but it's really unstable because bombings are occurring every day. And for example, tomorrow there are messages that Ukraine will be bombed again, and it will cause another blackout. So it's really hard sometimes to reach people because of blackouts, because of cut of connection of the internet, and especially when it comes to work, to study online, it's really impossible. I remember I had an experience when the connection was cut, and I was just wandering across my neighborhood to search for connection, for internet, for food. Actually, it sounds ridiculous that it actually happens in the 21st century, because sometimes it looks like it's like a post-apocalyptic film or computer game, but it's reality in Ukraine, and people continue to die from Russian bombs, from missile attacks, and it's really terrific. But I can say that what actually inspires me is that people are united. People feel unity, solidarity, and they try to support each other. We also can see how people are glad when, for example, Kherson region was freed by the Ukrainian army. And I have a friend who actually lived there, and he said it was a huge holiday in the city, in spite of the fact that people don't have light, don't have internet, water supply, electricity. But actually, they are happy that they can stay together, that they are in Ukraine.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can say in one hand, when you come, for example, to Kiev, you will see a city, you will see cafes, you will see people, but it's really unstable. And when it comes to the evening or to the night, the city is completely dark. And actually,
Mhm.
it's really painful to see because, like everywhere in the world, people are getting ready to Christmas. So they are preparing the holidays, they are planning their vacations, but it's impossible to do in Ukraine. And yeah, it's really sad to see this, but it's the reality of the war.
Yeah. So, but in general, in Kiev, let's say, you don't have any problems to and access to food or I don't know, water, in general level, everything working, supermarket working. Yeah, am I
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, of course, everything is working. I can say that even cafes, restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
coffee houses, they buy special equipment to to sell people food, to sell people coffee, to bring some happy emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it really looks crazy. You come to downtown and you see a restaurant which
Yep.
is with lights, with candles, and people can come and have a dinner, sit together. Even in spite there is no light, no electricity. So yeah, actually, Kyiv continues to live its normal life. However, there are some limits for internet connections, for electricity supply, but everything is working. People are staying strong, and it's really great.
Okay, so it sounds like people like learn how to live like during the like war, and have like new level of logistics. I don't know. What do you think? Like,
Yeah, I can say that actually people are getting used.
mm-hmm,
Actually, it sounds terrific, it sounds shocking, but people try to like have some rests of normal life, some daily rituals. They even joke about war, about blackouts, about alarms.
mm-hmm.
So I can say
Yeah,
that maybe it's something that helps to like stay. I don't know, in normal mental health condition in all these circumstances.
yeah.
Yeah, so
What do you think about like refugee situation? Like, do you see like it's like a movement, especially now it's winter, and what I think to stay in big city will be a trouble, especially that like big apartments building where like you dependent from electricity and all of this like city infrastructure. And do you see like people moving out from like city like Kyiv or like big cities, or you don't kind of say that?
yeah, actually, I can't say that I see movement from Kiev or some cities which are not
Hmm.
like in the zone of I don't know, sharp armed actions. I don't know how to explain. So people just try to buy some equipment that will help them to stay, like to live normally without electricity, without heating. I
Hmm.
don't know, like yeah, some equipment. Of course, people are moving from cities which are under missile attacks, for example, from Kherson, which is under bombings, and people are trying to leave the city. But I can't say that I saw like crowds of people, of refugees who are trying to flee Ukraine, as it was, for example, in February or in March. So yeah, I can't say that it happens and someone is in a panic.
I think it's kind of like everyone who want to leave, they already like left Ukraine, and like people who can stay, they like staying. And from American perspective, it's actually kind of some number of people back to Ukraine. So like my mom,
Yeah.
for example, she stayed during the summer with me in New York and DC, and now she back to Bucha and Kyiv. Um, so can you like tell a little bit about like what situation with like LGBT folks in Ukraine? Like we have like numbers of organization. What I understand, they like providing shelters. So and we have like kind of movement from east to like central and west Ukraine, and well like dangerous zone, yeah, a war zone kind of like, or like Kharkiv or Kherson. So people leave, left that cities. Yeah, like what do you see from your like grounds?
Yeah, of course. When we speak about LGBT movement in Ukraine today, it is mostly focused on humanitarian help, on shelter for LGBT people who had to leave their homes because of war, I don't know, war actions. Many people left country. Also, many people moved to other cities, for example, to Western Ukraine. Actually, it's really very sad because we had many plans for this year. I remember when it was 24th of February, I had a meeting of organizing committee of Women's March in Kiev. Also, we're getting prepared to organize Kiev Pride March, but actually, the war began. It was just a day before it started. I can say that mostly LGBT movement focused on providing shelter, on providing some services, some help with resocialization of people who come from other cities, who can feel alienated in new city. Also, there are some events where people can just come together, chat, play some games, so as it was before. And what is interesting for me is that many activists moved to Western Ukraine. I'm from Western Ukraine actually, and for me, it's really it's very interesting feeling because LGBT organizations were not that visible in Western Ukraine because of some I don't know
Church.
some church movement, and actually I can say that the situation changed when all activists moved to Lviv and
Yeah.
we became like a center capital of LGBT movement in Ukraine. I see that there is development of communities of actually some activities for LGBT people in these cities, but also there is a shelter in Kiev, in Dnipro. Actually, some organizations function even in Kharkiv, in Zaporizhia, so in different cities. And what I can say that now the activity is mostly focused on humanitarian help, on providing help to LGBT soldiers. Also, it's also an essential part of today's Ukrainian LGBT activism. And so actually, if we speak about LGBT movement before the war, it was mostly focused on visibility, on some events. It was I remember Pride in Kiev this year. It was like a huge, it was a protest, but it was really great. Many people came. It wasn't attacked. It was safe. And now actually, it's mostly focused on helping LGBT people who are under risk, especially in the context of war actions, in the context of occupation. So activists are mostly focused on these activities.
Yeah, and then we need to say LGBT soldiers are like now a big movement, and like a lot of LGBT folks, they serve in the army, and it's actually very unique. You know, when I like Google it a little bit, it's just few countries in the world have like strong LGBT soldier like movement. It's like America, one of them, where like it's strong movement, and actually in Europe, in Ukraine, second, I will say, strong movement of LGBT people who serve in the army, and it's actually very like something for not like surprisingly not every country, even in Europe, have kind of like this strong movement when they have like their organization and like Um, so what do you think? Like, let's talk a little bit like what's going on with human rights for LGBT, because what do you see from your perspective? Do you see like Ukraine government like doing some progress on the like that, let's say, democracy directions and like to um,
I can say that one aspect which is important is Euro integration, and also we had a case where it was a petition in support of same-sex marriages, and it was supported by more than 20,000 of people. It was published on the website of the president of Ukraine. And actually it was really like a huge victory because this petition, it wasn't made by the organization, it was made like by a just by a LGBT person who wanted to raise this question, and it gathered really huge support. So actually, as I see, this trend of Euro integration can actually help to make some reforms and some progress in the context of LGBT rights, for example, in the context of laws to prevent hate crimes. And these laws actually, they weren't taken before. And I think that it can be a huge chance actually to change this situation. But another thing which is important to say is that we can't speak about human rights when we talk about occupied territories, because LGBT people, they are persecuted, they are under attack, and For example, I know many cases from Kherson where people were connected with the LGBT community, they were persecuted, they were tortured, they were kidnapped, they just disappeared. And actually, it's really awful because Ukraine had made huge progress in context of LGBT rights, in context of safety of LGBT demonstrations also. For example, if you compare prides in Kiev in other cities in 2016 and 2015 and in 2021, it's a huge difference. I remember last year we also organized action in Kiev. We had a rainbow projection on the building of Kiev municipality, and it was the first time when actually Kiev government made a public statement that they support equality for LGBT people, they're against hate crimes, and it was really very pleasant to see that changes actually are occurring. I really hope that it will continue to be so, and homophobia, discrimination will be associated with Russia, and it won't be that like widespread in Ukraine. And I see that people are becoming different, and so what is actually important here is to win the war, and then we will have this progress, because now it's hard to say about human rights when there are occupied territories where people are just killed and tortured because of their sexual orientation or gender identity.
What do you like about your personal experience? Because I remember, I think you finished Mohylanka school, university, and it's one of the like. Can we say like it's liberal university in Ukraine?
Yeah,
Because it's
actually,
very like mixed. It's like it's kind of like liberal, but in the same time, what I remember, it's kind of like also right movement was very strong there. Like, it's true, or it's like my outside opinion. Like, yeah, no, I'm wrong.
yeah, I can say I finished Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and it's like a center of liberalism, as the
Yeah.
right sometimes call it. And I had my diploma work about intersectionality between feminist and lesbian movement. I had my bachelor's work about LGBT movement in Ukraine. Actually, everything was okay. I had good grades. We also have some courses like gender studies, queer studies, and no one limits this. I can say that, of course, there are some universities, there are some maybe lecturers, professors who can be homophobic, but it's not about my university. I didn't have experience of any discrimination actually in my university. So it was like a safe place, and actually no one limited me from writing works on topics which were interesting to me, and no one said me anything discriminative about my work.
But does it like? Did they like help you actually? Like it's a difference between like not limited and like actually like help you like promote like kind of like did you like feel some support or like of your work because it's very like unique and I think fresh topic in Ukraine still and like not so many like on academic level talk about like and about like LGBT topic or like gender topic. It's so
Yeah, actually, I had really great professor who assisted me in writing this diploma work, coursework. It's Tamara Martsenyuk.
I
She's really amazing. And so I had really great support from her. And actually, I can say that when we were writing our diploma works, I had some also students from my faculty who also wrote works about LGBT rights, about LGBT people. For example, my friend had a work about actually LGBT soldiers, and so she's not connected with activism. She just wanted to write about this topic, and it was accepted. It was supported. I can also say that I organized events about LGBT rights in my university. Like there were some public lectures about discrimination, about LGBT rights. We also had a mini action when we were writing letters in support of same-sex marriages, and yeah, it was also okay. I just bought all papers I needed because also we had some bureaucratic procedures, but no one told me that this event is something wrong or that they won't let me to organize it. And yeah, it was great. We even had more protection from university security service because, of course, there can be some students who belong to far-right groups, but I can't say that I felt any discrimination in the university or I had such experience. Of course, it can happen. For example, when I was visiting some demonstrations, it was like you're going to the war. I had a special costume for demonstration, like some
Yeah.
jeans, some hoodie, that were gray, and actually I
Special
was
instruction, like what to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was always, and actually sometimes I had just the question, why is it happening? But I can say about younger generation of
Hmm.
LGBT people, they are more open and they don't care about this at all. So, for example, when you go to the center of Kiev, to Podil region, it's
Hmm.
like near Mogilyanka, and you see people, young people with colorful hair, with rainbow, some I don't know ribbons, with rainbow flags, with badges, who are just wandering together, and they are not afraid that someone will come or attack them. Of course, it can happen sometimes, and there was, and I think that there is still a problem of injustice in such cases, but what I have said previously, I really hope that the situation will change in the future, and we will have much bigger progress in context of LGBT rights and protection of LGBT rights in Ukraine.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you from like new generation, yeah, of Ukrainian. Have you born in Ukraine, actually, like in independent Ukraine? Yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Kiev.
Yeah, yeah. No. I mean, like, yeah, you was born like after 91, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like
of
I
course.
technically born in Soviet Union. Like even like I don't remember anything from that. Like I'm like kind of that generation what was born in like another country. So do you feel like this progress like was made in Ukraine? Like
Yeah, of
like
course,
like
of
last
course.
decade for you, like.
Yeah, I can say it from different perspectives. Firstly, it's visibility. For example, when I was going to school, we didn't have any visibility of LGBT
Mhm.
people. It was something that was a subject for jokes, for offenses, but not like there was not adequate representation, and it was much harder, for example, for young people to accept themselves, and I think that it was much more violence against LGBT people. I can say that during last years, when we speak, for example, from 2014, LGBT people became much more visible. There were pride marches in Kiev, in Kharkiv, in Zaporizhia, in Kherson, in different cities, and actually it couldn't be before. And the first pride in Kiev in 2015, it was attacked violently, but during the next years it was protected. It began to occur in the center of Kiev, and actually it became like a place where all people, not only LGBT activists, just come to celebrate diversity, to stand up for equality, for equal rights. And when you came to Pride, for example, last year, you will see families with children, with dogs, with cats. It was really, yeah, it was really great. And for example, even friends of my mom, they also came to Pride March just to support LGBT people. It was really very nice moment. Also, I can say that there were some changes in the context of legislation. For example, in Ukraine, there is a law which actually and prohibits discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. When people are taking like job according to the new labor code, it was adopted in 2015. Also, like there were attempts the law to against hate crimes. Actually, it wasn't adopted, but it's still in the Ukrainian parliament. So I hope that it will be adopted in some time. And yeah, what I see is that they see that LGBT people, like they are everywhere, they are in all spheres, and it's normal. And I think that the situation changes. For example, also I used to work with teachers. We had some trainings about human rights, and I actually couldn't believe that schools in small cities, that teachers will promote equality, equal rights, and also LGBT rights. And when we were getting letters in support of LGBT people from children, like from schools, from small cities, it's even not Kiev. It's really great, and I think that it's huge progress because it differs greatly even from the situation which was when I was at school, when I was at the teenage, and I'm really happy that now it's much easier for young people to accept themselves, and they can find like people who support them. They can find their communities because there are many organizations, some initiative groups, grassroots groups. They are practically in all big cities. Of course, there is a difference between small cities, villages, and bigger cities. But I think that now people have much more resources, much more information, and much more support to be visible and to get help when they need.
Very like a gay-friendly Netflix would have a lot of like propaganda. You think we're like few years ahead for like gay marriage in Ukraine? What do you think?
Actually, it's
Some
hard for me
form,
to
I think, for gay marriage. Let's say like it's each country different. In Ukraine, we need to say for gay marriage, we need to change constitution. What actually for now it's look like a little bit hard because we need like supermajority twice and constitutional court on board. So, but civil partnership law look like more like realistic, yeah, because you need just simple majority in parliament. So, what do you think? Few years
I think actually it can happen. It
quicker than we
depends
think.
on, yeah, actually all depends on the situation with the war, I
War,
suppose, because it's really hard like to make some predictions in such
yeah,
circumstances. But really think and that I believe that it will happen in a few years. And so we see that for even Istanbul Convention was ratified recently. It was a massive fight between far right and religious groups and activists, but it was ratified. So now it also came to like power. I don't know how to explain, and so it was adopted. So I think that the same will happen to the law about civil partnerships as well.
yeah. I actually, I believe that fact a lot of LGBT people serve in the Ukraine army will help to push civil partnership law, because, for example, now straight couple have more privilege than like gay couple, yeah, because if you like lesbian couple or gay couple and one of a partner serve in the army and something happened with you, yeah, like you have you die, for example, in the battle. Straight couple have all of like partner who like civil partner will like have all of this government support and benefits and like a lot of stuff on gay couple like not. And I think it's a huge argument for to push civil partnership law in Ukraine, say, hey, like we have similar situation where like straight couple have all of these privileges and like gay couple cannot don't have equal rights. And in the same time, they serve in our an army and helping to protect Ukraine, and they deserve it. So it's a good argument to actually fix that. What actually very easy to fix. Okay, what do you think about Russia situation? Because you and me, we all know, it's actually last news from a few days ago. Like Russia adopted new propaganda law, what now working on in general. Yeah, so before that they had this child propaganda law when they prevent propaganda, what actually was bullshit, how you can say difference, but anyway, there was kind of that law say you cannot spread information between children. I don't know how now they say in general, yeah, so you cannot talk about LGBT stuff at all. It's kind of now in general illegal. So what are your opinion about this? What do you think, what impact it will have for Ukraine?
Yeah, of course, I can say that this law actually it's a part of the whole Russian regime, which is actually focused on ban of every expression of the freedom, and LGBT people they are express this. Oh my God, I'm sorry, expressing this freedom, and so that's why they are targets for this public hate, I think. Also, actually, it's a part of Russian anti-Western narrative, I suppose, because we often hear, from Russian news, from Russian propaganda, that there are only LGBT people in the Europe, that they are ruining some, I don't know, traditional values, that they are danger for family, and all this bullshit. And so, actually, this law is also actually essential part of this whole narrative. Also, if we speak about Ukraine, in Russian propaganda, it was a narrative that actually the war began because of LGBT price in Ukraine. So it sounds ridiculous, but actually it was published in the media. So that's why I suppose that hatred towards LGBT people, towards any expression, is actually a essential part of the whole regime and the whole ideology of so-called Russian world. Actually, it has. I think that it's really bad for LGBT people who remain at occupied territories. I say it again. For example, if we speak about Donetsk and Luhansk region, about the Crimea, where people can be persecuted, and it also happens in the territories which were occupied after the 21st of February. I told about Kherson. I think that the same happens everywhere where is this occupation. Also, there were attempts, for example, in Luhansk region to take a law about death penalty because of homosexuality. So also, it's terrific, and I think that this law will just continue to keep this ideology, which is based on hatred towards everything which is expressed in other, I can say. So I think that it will be another step to ban freedom of expression in Russia, and what is tragic on the territories which are under occupation of Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, you know what's interesting in that context? What I see now in New York, we have more LGBT refugee from Russia than from Ukraine. What actually very surprised me, because I thought we will have a lot of refugee from Ukraine, but actually opposite. And what we see, we have much more bigger number of people coming from LGBT people coming from Russia than from Ukraine. It's very amazing. I mean, just interesting. So do you see a lot of LGBT people who coming from Russia to live in Ukraine?
Actually, I don't see.
No, not really.
And now, actually, it's also impossible due to some limitations.
Yeah, exactly. They need visa. Yeah, I think. I mean, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
in general.
So
And
yeah, it's just impossible, I can say, and so that's why
logistically, yeah,
I.
like came to come to Ukraine. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, yeah, but so do you think Ukraine became this kind of like island of freedom in this Eastern Europe? What are your opinion because of
Yeah,
this? Because all
yeah.
neighbor,
Actually,
yeah, we'll say Belarus, Russia. I would say Ukraine even like a little bit more progressive than Poland on
yeah,
LGBT issue.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah. We were talking about this with my colleagues this summer, and so we also came to this thought that Ukraine is a center of I don't know, human rights in the region because there are many good things which were done in recently. There was a good collaboration with the government, many organizations, many activists, many active people, and was not like a pressure from the state, as for example in Russia or in Belarus or even in Poland, if we speak. Also, people, I think that they are more open, of
Mm-hmm.
course, than in Russia, also in all these countries. So yeah, that's why I can say that Ukraine, before the war, it used to be this center, and I think that what is essential here is active people,
Mm-hmm.
because people and activists who unite, who stand up in support of their rights, who are not afraid to be visible, who try to support each other, organize different projects, initiatives. It actually, I think that made progress in Ukraine. Again, I said it previously. If we speak about the situation even before 2014, it wasn't so. And when people got united, when people stood up and began to fight for their rights, the situation began to change. And so that's why I can say that the progress that was in Ukraine and that actually is still in Ukraine, if we speak about this topic, it's because of people and because of activists who united and who made some like active actions, I can say, in support of LGBT rights and then human rights in general.
Yeah, and I actually, my personal opinion, it's also this kind of like freedom. It's like a national idea of Ukraine. Like if you will go back to like this Cossack idea, yeah, like Cossack Republic and like all of this, like middle of centuries, whatever, when people like trying to live without like self-government, yeah, self-government idea. Like Ukraine was like first constitution in the world, I think. Yeah, Piliporlik, that's constitution. It was like I mean, like problem is they didn't like kind of build this republic well, but at least they have like this idea. And um and um and I think all of this anti-LGBT stuff, it was like it's not unnatural for Ukraine. It's like Soviet Union stuff. It's like Russian Empire, like trying to give this idea to to Ukraine, like all of this, like hate minorities, hate people, like be like everyone, like kind of this stuff. And but if we will go back to original Ukraine ideas, it's a lot of it, like about this freedom, like self-democracy, like you are who you are, and like this kind of stuff. I think this is like it's actually why it will be easy in Ukraine, easier with human rights and LGBT rights than other countries, like in Russia, for example. It's like they're like empire. They like never will be a good country. Okay, so I think of my last topic, what I want to talk with you will be so like we talked before, in America, in our like political discussion, we have this very strong voice from left, I will say radical left group of people who use argument we need stop supporting Ukraine, like, and give Ukraine weapon, so we can stop war. And their argument, they use argument as America continuing give Ukraine, like, weapon, it's like simulate continuing the war. So what would be your argument on that, like counter argument? What do you will say this?
Yeah, actually, if we speak about this argument, I can say that it has nothing to do with the reality. And of course, in an ideal world, when people are not shooting, the war will end, everything will be good, but it's not so. And if Ukraine will stop to resist, it will lose its independence, and actually more people will suffer under occupation, under severe repressions, and we don't need to make predictions. We can see what is happening in the occupied territories, which were freed. We can see what happened in Bucha and Mariupol, in Kherson, when people were just killed because of that they are Ukrainians. And it can also be seen in Russian propaganda when people, their journalists, their politicians, opinion leaders, they just actually they make statements with violence towards Ukrainians. They tolerate it, and they even say that it's something good to kill Ukrainians, to destroy everything which is connected with Ukraine. And if we speak about LGBT rights, there will be no place for LGBT rights in Ukraine when Russia comes here, because people will be also persecuted, and Russian laws will also come here. And I think that this last law, it's not a final point. It can come even like the criminal persecution of LGBT people, because it's also complies with the ideology of Russia. So that's why I think that supporting Ukraine, it's about its independence, and it's about keeping people's lives. And believe me, actually, my life changed also dramatically, as lives of millions of Ukrainians who had normal lives, who had some plans for vacations, who had their works, their university, I don't know, everything. And in one moment, it was just destroyed because of imperialist ambitions of Russia, which came here, and many people are killed, many people lost their homes. And for me, it's really very painful to hear such words, because now when people are living under risk of new attacks, when, for example, I have got recently a message from my university that tomorrow is a huge risk of missile attacks on Kyiv. So actually, I think it's not about anti-militarism or about left ideas. It's about trying to limit yourself from the reality, from what is happening, and take off the responsibility. And Ukraine really needs support of all people all over the world, because when Russia is not stopped in Ukraine, when Ukraine doesn't win, this tyranny, this hatred will spread across the world, and Ukraine will not be a final point. So that's why I always ask people who are abroad, who are in different countries, to stand up for Ukraine, to demand justice, because many people in Ukraine, they remain in such circumstances when they can't talk. And actually, as it's in the song, when the violence causes silence, it's really awful. And that's why we need to stand up, and Ukraine needs this support. And it can be solved just when Ukraine will stop gaining weapons, because in that case, Ukraine will be destroyed.
Can we say, like, if we will, for example, lead this logic of this our Democracy Progressive Caucus in House, who wrote that letter about to address White House to stop help to Ukraine, if we will lead this logic, more Ukrainian, more LGBT will die than in
Of
their
course.
world. If we will agree with I don't know with Russia, find some
Of course, and people will just die silently in prisons and colonies, somewhere in a cells, when they will be tortured or kidnapped. And yeah, of course, maybe it's more comfortable when people are not shouting, when people are just remaining under occupation, but more and more people will die, and it won't be stopped, of course.
Yeah, and it's already happened in history. Yeah, like I will say, like 19th century, like when Soviet Union take over Ukraine. Yeah, and they also like kill like Holodomor. Yeah, it's Russia Empire kill like a lot of Ukrainians, millions Ukrainians, and after World War II also in Gulag. Yeah, Stalin kill a lot of Ukrainians as well, and hunting all of these pro-Ukrainian people who like dream about Ukrainian independence. So it's kind of like, it's not like a theory, it's kind of like practic, and like we already know from Ukraine history, Russia will, it's a not good power, it's not country who will just take over like some territories. They will immediately kill a lot of Ukrainians, and especially targeting LGBT community.
Yeah, I can also add just one statement. It happened in Mariupol. There was a community center of Platforma 2. It was an artistic initiative which was also supporting LGBT rights. And when Russians actually invaded the city, they came to their office. Of course, they destroyed everything completely, and they made really a terrific I don't know, video on their news about this center, that it's LGBT propaganda from the West, that it was conducted by NATO instructors. So it was ridiculous, and there were people like from, I don't know, this occupational government who were telling that LGBT propaganda should be banned, that people should be persecuted, and so it's actually happening. And if Ukraine stops to resist, the same will happen in all cities of Ukraine, and this progress that was done, it will be just lost. And maybe it the most also sad, because many things were done even during Euromaidan protest in 2014, and when it all will be just lost because of this, it would be really very sad, because many people were fighting to change Ukraine, to make it democratic, to make it progressive.
Great. So it's, I think it's a great message for our like final statement, and like, let's say for our like all LGBT friends in America. So if you support your LGBT community and you wanna support Ukrainian LGBT community, please support continuing help for Ukraine, because it's only one way how Ukrainian LGBT community can survive. It's no other way, unfortunately. Okay, it was very pleasure for me to speak with you, and I'm glad we have like electricity all the time, all this like 50 minutes. We have electricity, internet, and like we're kind of lucky for these days. So thank you a lot, and it was pleasure to talk with you and make this video, and I hope our American friends will see that and like probably have some information, some thoughts to think. Thank you so much.
Thank you.